bris. Okay. With the help of Hashem, we are learning Shabbos Daf Kuf Lamed Zayin. We're going to begin with a Mishnah that's speaking about a case where there are two babies in front of us. One baby's bris is on Shabbos. Shabbos is the 8th day. Mila Bismana is Doicha Shabbos. And the other baby is either a baby whose bris should have been on Friday, meaning that Shabbos is the 9th day of the baby's birth, mitzvah to do a bris, but not Doicha Shabbos. And another case where the second baby was born on Sunday, meaning that Shabbos is the 7th day of the birth, which means that there is b'chlal no mitzvah to do the bris, aside of the fact that it's not Doicha Shabbos. And then the moil went ahead, and the moil accidentally switched the babies. And instead of him circumcising the one that should have been circumcised on Shabbos, he circumcised one of the other ones. Now, in the Mishnah, there's going to be a machlokas tanoim. In the Gemara, we're going to have three ways of understanding the cases where there is the machlokas of these tanoim, but all of it is going to be around the following concept, that there is a svara to say. Now, I'm going to be speaking about two items that either both are needed or one of the two are needed. That when a person is ta'a b'dvar mitzvah. Ta'a b'dvar mitzvah means, as we'll see the way we'll learn the Gemara, you are tarud b'dvar mitzvah. You're occupied to do a mitzvah. And in that end, you ended up doing a mitzvah, tarud b'dvar mitzvah. V'asa mitzvah, maybe you won't be chayiv chatos. Okay? Now, many more details about the sugya in the Gemara, which is a fascinating sugya. We're going to learn, hopefully, from our Gemara, we're going to see how from the Gemara grew out the machlokas rishonim, what happens if a baby was circumcised before the 8th day? Like one of the cases of the Mishnah, for sure. A baby whose 8th day is on Sunday, and he was a gemalt on Shabbos. Okay, so that means we did not do a mitzvah, but he has the physical bris. What happens when the baby turns 8 days old? So as we'll see, there's a machlokas rishonim whether there is an obligation to do hatafas dam bris or not, because since the result of the milah that was done l'shem mitzvah is on this person, that person is fully covered. We're going to learn the Mishnah that discusses the din of katan hachoila ein moyhalin oisei achi yavri. We're going to learn Shmuel's elaboration of this Mishnah, that achi yavri means that, like we mentioned a few days ago, that if it is choila kol gufay, then you have to wait 7 days to pass after he became well to do the bris. And then the question the Gemara is going to have, is it 7 days me'es la'es? Do you have to wait for a full 724? Or do you apply the rule of mixas hayom kilkuloi as we apply it when it comes to being mal, a healthy baby, right? When a healthy baby is born and the Torah says circumcise the baby on the 8th day, well, let's say today is Thursday. If a baby is born Thursday right before Shkia, Thursday late afternoon, next week, Thursday morning, you don't have a full 7 days me'es la'es that passed, but you do make the bris because of the rule of mixas hayom kilkuloi. Maybe when a baby was ill, because of the concept of chamira, sakanta, miyisura, we're more machmir. You can only do the bris after a full 724 passed. We're going to speak out the sheet of our Rebbe that emphasizes that even though from Rosh Hashanah, from the Mishnah, it comes out that generally, when you have to weigh zrizin magdim al mitzvahs, b'rov am hadras melech, really the pasuk is metakom, it's b'rov am hadras melech. So normally zrizin magdim al mitzvahs trumps b'rov am, but by a bris, the Rebbe holds that Barav Am is more important than Zriz and Magdim Mitzvahs, which means that if there's a bris, you'll do it in the morning, you'll have 20 people. You'll do it in the afternoon, you'll have 25 people, 100 people, you'll have more people do it in the afternoon. We're going to learn the Mishnah that speaks about Tzitz and Hama'akvin, right? Those strands that were not fully covered, taken away from the Arla, and therefore, as we'll see, the Roiv of the Atara is covered. We'll define what that means, the Roiv of the Atara. Then you're mechuyev to trim more away from the Arla. We're going to learn here, Kuf Lamed Zayin, the Nusach of the brachas that is made by the Moyel, that is made by the Aviyah Ben, the bracha that's made after the bris, like we do today, right? We do that right before we name the baby, the Nusach of a baby, the Nusach of these brachas when a ger is being gemalt, when an eved was being gemalt, and God willing, we'll have enough time to start a new Perek, the 20th Perek. We're already heading towards the latter Parakim of Shabbos. The beginning of the Perek will discuss the permissibility to perform certain malachas on Shabbos and on Yom Tov in the preparation of food. Beginning with the example that if you have wine that has some dregs in it and you want them to be strained, so they used to take a keli and they would suspend a keli on top of the opening of a cup. They would take a strainer and they would wrap it around the entire opening of the cup, through which they would pour the wine, so the dregs would stay in the strainer and the wine would go to the bottom of the cup. What is the issue? We're not even focusing now on the issue of Baited. As we'll see, the issue that the Mishnah begins with is whether suspending the strainer is considered making an oil. Amazing. And any item that is a tefach by a tefach, so obviously it has to be bigger than my mug, that's called an oil. Making an oil is a problem whether we are or whether we are not allowed. We'll see all that in the Mishnah. Let us start on Kuf Lamed Zayin Amud Aleph, around 6 lines from the top of the Amud. Right, the first Mishnah, Mish Oyeloi Shnei Tiroikis. Fascinating case. Me Shoyeloi Shnei Tiroikis. 2 babies in front of us. Echad Lamul Achar Shabbos. Guys, this is one version. This is our Mishnah's version. Like we mentioned, there are 3 ways of learning this. Way number 1, the way it's written. Here, one baby's bris should be on Sunday. Guys, what does that mean? That means that Shabbos, out of Sunday, how old is the baby? Only 7 days old. 7 days old, it's not that Mila is not doiche Shabbos. No. There's no mitzvah of Mila b'chal. He's not 8 days old yet. And the Echad Lamul b'Shabbos. And the other baby is a baby that was born last week Shabbos. That's the way it works. You're born on whatever day of the week you're born. Next week, the same day of the week, is already the 8th day. The Moil went ahead and the Moil took the baby that's only 7 days old and he circumcised that baby on Shabbos. In other words, was a mitzvah done? I'm not saying a mitzvah that's doiche Shabbos. No, B'chlal was a mitzvah done. Not even that. Not even a mitzvah was done, right? Because it's a 7 days old. Says the Mishnah, according to everyone, chayiv. Chayiv means it was b'shoigeg, you're chayiv chatas. You violated a isur d'oraisa. Isur d'oraisa Shabbos chatas. Second case, in the version of our Mishnah, echad lamul be'erev Shabbos. One baby became 8 on Friday. Once the baby, and for whatever reason, right or wrong, they did not circumcise that baby on Friday. Now, guys, my friends, Mila Shaloi Bismana is not doiche Shabbos, but there's a mitzvah to do a bris milah. So now that it's Shabbos and this baby is 9 days old, you're not allowed to do it on Shabbos, but if you did it, you did a mitzvah. Okay. And there's another baby. The other baby is taka 8 days old. And here again, v'shachach, this is a mistake. Erev Shabbos, and the one that's 9 days old was gemalt. Rabbi Eliezer is machmer, right? By machshir mila, Rabbi Eliezer is lenient. Here he's machmer. Taka, you did a mitzvah, right? But it's not doiche Shabbos. Taka, you were tarud, you were involved, you were preoccupied in doing a mitzvah. What I mean is you were preoccupied in doing a mitzvah of circumcising the one that is doiche Shabbos. So even though you have these 2 advantages, nevertheless, you're chayiv chatos. Rabbi Yeshua says you're patur. No. And like Rashi says, the last line in the Mishnah, because Rabbi Yeshua holds, ta'a bidvar mitzvah, Number one. Number two, ve'asa mitzvah, pater. Guys, the words ta'a, the way we learn pshat, and tarud will be interchangeable. Ta'a b'dvar mitzvah means that since there was a baby here that has to be gemalt on Shabbos, it was born on Shabbos, so you are actually involved in doing something that you are allowed to do on Shabbos. That's your intention. That means your involvement was kosher. Number two, what you did, even though you circumcised the baby that's 9 days old, and that milah is not doicha Shabbos, but still it's a milah. You did a mitzvah. The question will be, does Rabbi Yeshua need both of these reasons to pater the person from a chatas, or maybe only one of them? And the question will be, which one of them? That will be the discussion and all the different versions we have in the Mishnah. Now, just to bring out one thing, my friends. Why does there have to be two babies? Remember that. Why does it do it? If, when you read the Rashi, what happens if there's only one baby? As we'll see, that won't be enough. I'll explain why when we learn in the Gemara. All this only works, dafke, because in front of the Mayil was a baby who needs to be gemalt on Shabbos. That's the ta'ah b'dvar mitzvah aspect, that there was an involvement in doing something that's 100% okay. And number two, right, what he did, even though he mauled the one that's 9 days old, it's not doicha Shabbos, but you can't say he didn't do a mitzvah. He did a mitzvah that was not allowed to be done on Shabbos. Okay, says the Gemara. Rav Huna's version was Masni Chayev. Masni Chayev means he had the girsa of our Mishnah. That in the case of the Reisha, the two babies was that one baby on Shabbos was 7 days old, right? Because he was born on Sunday. L'kula alma, even Rabbi Yeshua will hold that even though there were two babies, that means that the moil was tarud b'dvar mitzvah, because there was a baby that was born on Shabbos. But since what he did was circumcising a baby that's 7 days old, everyone holds that he's chayv. However, Rabbi Yehuda holds that what we have, the first case in the Mishnah, there, everyone holds that he's pater. And as we'll and the Gemara will explain exactly what his girsa was. He had a different girsa in the Mishnah. Rav Huna masni chayev the Tanya, Amar Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar, le'nechleku Rabbi Eliezer, the Rabbi Yeshua, al mi shohoyeloi beis tinoikos. When ach echad lamul b'Shabbos, the echad lamul guys after Shabbos, that means one baby becomes 8 days old on Sunday, meaning Shabbos, there isn't even a mitzvah. There is a mitzvah that's not doicha Shabbos. 0 mitzvah, 7 days old. This is the reisha of our Mishnah, so is the girsa of this baraisa. Everyone holds that he's chayev. You know why he's chayev? Even though there was a baby that became 8 days old on Shabbos, so even though he was ta'a b'dvar mitzvah, which means tarud b'dvar mitzvah, that in itself for sure is not enough. That's this version. You know what you need? You need either only or at least also the fact that he did a mitzvah. When you circumcise a baby that's 7 days old, you b'chlal didn't do a mitzvah. So he's chayiv chatas. Look all al menach leku. Where's the machlokes? Al misha yeloi beis tinoikos when there are two babies. And always two babies. Echad lamul be'erev Shabbos. One was born Friday, which means that the bris should have been done on Friday. Now that they didn't do it Shabbos, there is an obligation to circumcise him, not on Shabbos, but there's a mitzvah here. And when it's like 8 days is on Shabbos, Shabbos, and here again, v'shachach umo as shel erev Shabbos b'Shabbos, the one that is a mitzvah. When you circumcise a baby that's 9 days old on Shabbos, you perform the mitzvah at the wrong time. Here is where still Rabbi Eliezer is mechayev chatos, because Rabbi Eliezer does not subscribe to ta'a b'dvar mitzvah, v'asa mitzvah pater. He doesn't hold of that. And Rabbi Yeshua holds pater. Okay. Mamish again, mamish the way we learned the Mishnah. And before we go on to the other version, ushneim, both of these tanoim, loy lamadua, elam averis kechavim. They both source their opinion from the source of carbon chatois. When you ask a yid, what do you have in the Torah of the parsha of chatois? He'll say, what do you mean? Vayikra, in the beginning. All the different types of chatois. Asher nasi yechte, and the koyen amushuach that's yechte, and the commoner that's yechte. But guys, as we learned a lot of Kachim, For some reason, Hashem also wrote many halachas of kachim in Bamidbar, in Parsha Shlach Lecha. For some reason, this whole like the Hoiru Bezdin, right, the Hoirius. So one Parsha that the call has to bring a par that Yitak have in Vayikra. But if they made a mistake regarding a Avodah Zarah sin, a detail of Avodah Zarah, that Parsha is written in Shlach Lecha. And there the Torah writes the halachas of Chatois. And in Parsha Shlach, the Torah writes these words, Torah achas yeh lochem lo'oise b'shgaga. Torah achas yeh lochem. So all of the halachas of Chatois, that they are all are the same, is from a pasuk in Shlach. And that is bismuchin to someone who inadvertently violated an Avodah Zarah violation. So says the Gemara that Rabbi Eliezer Savar, first white line, indeed, when you chayv chatos, if what you did was like a avodas kechavim violation, which is ma avodas kechavim marachmano loisavit. We're looking at Maisa, right? Chasidus, machshavet, not your intentions, not your kavanas. What did you do? If I did something that I'm not allowed to do, if that is an act of avodah zarah, I got to bring a karman chatos. V'chiyavit mechayev hachinami loishna. If what I did was not allowed to be done, what I did, I know, guys, that a baby that's 9 days on Shabbos, circumcising him is a mitzvah of circumcision. I'm not allowed to do that on Shabbos. It's not doiches Shabbos. So the bottom line is, God said, don't do it. I did it. Chatos. Rabbi Yeshua holds, no, if I cared. The fact that we learn Torah achas from Chatos by Avodas Kechavim, there, the lav mitzvah. There, whatever that person did is b'chlal not a mitzvah. Over here, mitzvah. Now we're going to learn pshat. Here is a mitzvah, meaning was that this person was attempting to do a mitzvah. Because my friends, even according to Rabbi Yeshua, even though the baby is 9 days old, the Gemara is saying the words mitzvah. Being mal, a 9-day-old baby on Shabbos is not a mitzvah. Yeah, there's an obligation for that child to be circumcised, but not on Shabbos. Mitzvah means there was also a baby here. There was also a baby here that today's 8 days. That is doiches Shabbos. It's very important. That's why the Mishnah has to give Rabbi Yeshua Shita when there are 2 babies. If you learn pshat over here, right, that here a baby that turned 8 on Friday, and you mauled them on Shabbos because you forgot that it was born on Friday. No one holds your pater, not even Rabbi Yeshua. Clear. There's a mitzvah aspect. Mila shaloi bezmana is not doiches Shabbos. The word here is that since there was another baby present who became 8 on Shabbos, Mila bezmana is doiches Shabbos. So your attempt, your involvement is for a mitzvah. Now that you made a mistake and you did a bris milah on a baby that's 9 days old, since your attempt was to do a mitzvah, holds Rabbi Yeshua, that's called Tabed Var Mitzvah, V'asa Mitzvah, you are pater. That is the first version. Rav Yehuda Damoira, Masni Pater. The Tanya, now again, let's elaborate his version of this machlekes. Amar Rabbi Meir. Loi nechleku Rabbi Eliezer v'Rabbi Yeshua. Al misha hoyeloi beis tinoikos echad lama be'erev Shabbos ve'echad lama b'Shabbos. Listen to this. This is the case. 1-8 on Friday. So now on Shabbos, he's 9 days old. Erev Shabbos b'Shabbos take, right? Because of the fact that there were 2 things that happened. 2 things that happened. Number 1, you attempted to do a mitzvah that's doiches Shabbos. Number 2, even though you circumcised the wrong baby, but at least he's 9 days old. So you did a bris milah. There's already a chiyuv to do a bris milah. Even Rabbi Eliezer is moide that is pater. Gevaldik. Where is there the machlekes? Amisha lebeis tinoikes echalam be'ishal achar Shabbos. One was born on Sunday. Shabbos is only 7 days old. Ve'echalam b'Shabbos and v'shachacham es shel achar Shabbos. B'Shabbos. So you circumcised a 7-day-old baby. Here, Rabbi Eliezer says, you're chayiv chatos, even though you attempted to do a mitzvah, but you did not do a mitzvah at all. And Rabbi Yeshua says, no, even here you're pater. Amazing. In other words, according to this latter version, I don't even need for you to do an act that's called a mitzvah. even if you de facto circumcised a 7-day-old baby, since you attempted to do a mitzvah, you're also pater. And again, Vishneim loilim dua elam avodas kichavim. That Rabbi Eliezer savar ke'avodas kichavim. Ma avodas kichavim amar Rachman oli savet. V'i v'chi avid mechayev hachinami loishnan. In other words, attempting to do a mitzvah, I don't care your attempt, your intent, your occupation. I care what you did. Bottom line. Again, the mitzvahs are in the levushim. Bottom line. So therefore, Yechayev. Rabbi Yeshua. But guys, even don't forget that even Rabbi Eliezer holds, right, that if not only did you attempt to do a mitzvah, but you also did a mitzvah on the wrong time, Rabbi Eliezer will be made already your pater. Here, the reason why you're chayiv is because what you did is b'chlal not called a mitzvah, because the baby is 7 days old. Rabbi Yeshua holds, no, Hassan by avodas kichavim, you were not taught the mitzvah. And all Rabbi Yeshua needs is the ta'ah b'dvar mitzvah, which means the torud b'mitzvah, tared mitzvah. So Atkan, 2 versions. And now we're going to learn a 3rd version. Now buckle your seatbelts. You're going to be shocked. Tared Rab Chia, right, the first editor of the Amoraim, right? He had a braisa. And the braisa stated that Oimer Hoyer Rav Meir, that what? Regarding this argument, not the way Rav Huna learned it, which is the way it's written in our Mishnah, not the way Rav Yehuda learns it, but Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Yeshua, Almi, Shahoyle, based in Oikos. If one of them is Lamul Be'erev Shabbos, which is better, because at least on Shabbos it's 9 days old, Ve'echalam B'Shabbos, and V'Shachach Umal Eshel Erev Shabbos B'Shabbos, they both hold his chayev, Oy Gewalt. How would you explain that? So it's the best case scenario, according to Rab Chia's Braisa, that means both. You were tarud b'mitzvah, and what you did is a mitzvah. At least the baby is 9 days old. There's a chiyuv to be mal, to circumcise the baby. Both Rabbi Yeshua and Rabbi Eliezer will hold you chayiv chatos. The Gemara is going to ask, it doesn't make sense. We'll get to that in a moment. In other words, what the Moil did was circumcising a baby that's only 7 days old. There is where Rabbi Eliezer says, even though you were tarud, but you didn't do a mitzvah. And Rabbi Yeshua holds, like we mentioned, right, like Rav Yehuda Shita, clearly, all I need is for you to be tarud. The moment you were attempting to do a mitzvah, that's doicha Shabbos, that in itself removes you from the chiyuv of chatos. Problem is, if Rabbi Yeshua holds that even when you de facto b'chlal didn't do a mitzvah, you circumcised a 7-day-old baby, still you're pater because you were tarud b'mitzvah. Hashta frek the Gemara. Rabbi Yeshua say for like oven mitzvah. Yet poiter. So reisha the ka'avid mitzvah machayev. Faker beer. Not only was he attempting to do a mitzvah, but the baby that he circumcised was 9 days old. Not doicha Shabbos, but it's already a mitzvah. Answers the Gemara. Therefore, Amri devei Rabbi Yanai. That reisha, according to this version of Rabbi Chia, according to that Braisa, is kigoin. That's key. Shekadam umal shel Shabbos be'erev Shabbos. Again, there were 2 babies. One was born on Friday. One was born on Shabbos. Everything we learned until now, we keep on mentioning, is that both babies are in front of the moil on Shabbos. The moil circumcised the wrong one. The last version was since one of the babies was born erev Shabbos, one was born on Shabbos. Here, the one there was an attempt to do a circumcision erev Shabbos, right? It was born on Friday. Next week, Friday, the baby is 8 days old. They made a mistake there also. And they circumcised the one that should have been circumcised on Shabbos on erev Shabbos. So one baby is out of the picture. Now, again, that baby had a circumcision done on Friday when the baby is 7 days old. Okay? And now, what's here in front of the baby, in front of the moil? Only one child. Who's that one child? Taka, the one that's 9 days old. I get it. But there's no one else in front of the moil. There is nothing here that justifies a Chilul Shabbos. Nothing. So, according to this latter version, again, the key will be is, are you tarud in doing something that taka could be done? If you don't have that at all, everyone knows you're chayiv. The loy nitna Shabbos lidachos. Now, comes along the Rosh, and he says a gavaldik word. Okay, what was the case here? Two babies. One, the one that was born on Shabbos was circumcised Erev Shabbos, when the baby was 7 days old. Okay, my friends, what happens if you circumcise a baby that's 7 days old? Is there an obligation to do anything on the 8th day? Hatafas dambris, there's no arlo to cut. Says the Rosh, Mikan, that there isn't even an obligation to do Hatafas dambris. Because if there at least would have been an obligation to do Hatafas dambris, then the Gemara cannot say Shabbos lidachis, because there is an obligation. There is some mitzvah here. But Elamad, there is no obligation. So that baby is out of the picture, completely out of the picture. The only baby that's here is the baby that is 9 days old. 9 days old is not Doiches Shabbos. 9 days old is not Doiches Shabbos. Says the Rambam, no. If you mal a baby on 7 days old, you're obligated to do Atafas Dambris on the 8th day. You're obligated. But you know what? Not on Shabbos. So as far as Shabbos is concerned, the Gemara can say, Shabbos lidachos. But if not for the issue of Shabbos, then you're mechuyev on the 8th day to do Atafas Dambris. And still, according to the Rambam, the Gemara is going to work. The bottom line will be is that the case of Rabbi Chiya's Reisha is where when it came Shabbos, none of the babies will overrule the Shabbos, override the Shabbos. So if you don't have at least the attempting of doing a mitzvah that may be done on Shabbos, then even Rabbi Yeshua will hold that you're going to be chayiv. And Seifa was that you didn't circumcise any babies yet. You did not circumcise any babies. So the second case would be one baby on Shabbos is 7 days old. Bechlal not a mitzvah. But the other, there is a baby here that's supposed to be done on Shabbos. So the moil is involved in a mitzvah that is doicha Shabbos. And that's all we care about. Even if de facto he circumcised a baby that's 7 days old, that means he didn't even do a mitzvah. Doesn't matter. But he was tarud b'dvar mitzvah. Right? Tarud b'dvar mitzvah exempts you from the chiyuv chatos. Again, seif and nitna Shabbos lidachos, because both babies were in front of the moil, and one of them, 8 days on Shabbos.
Rabbi.
Yes.
Just to clarify, you said being that there's nothing to do, there's no mitzvah at all in the first case. That's the proof that you don't have to do hatafas dambris according to.
That's what the Rosh says.
And how does the Rambam disagree with that?
Rambam
again?
says that if not for it being Shabbos, you would be obligated to do hatafas dambris on the 8th day. But mila bismana doicha Shabbos is a bona fide mila. Hatafas dambris is not doicha Shabbos. So it also works our Gemara. So the ratio of Rabbi Chiya's Braisa is that no baby here now is doicha Shabbos. That's the word.
Hatafas dambris is not considered mila according to the Rambam.
That's the very good. Very good. Okay. Omar, or I'm not going to say the word mila. I don't know if that word is correct. It's not doicha Shabbos. It's not doicha Shabbos. Okay. Omar Abashi Rav Kahanon Reisha Nami. Even let's go with this. Even when there's only one baby in front of the moil, can you say that the obligation of a bris bismana is doicha Shabbos? So why don't we say Reisha Nami nitna Shabbos lidachis legabi tanoikas da alma? He's occupied in doing a bris. The Torah allows a moil to do a mila bismana on Shabbos. So how can you say that he's not attempting to do a mitzvah? So the Gemara says the fact that out there is a baby that's taka bismana on the Shabbos doesn't mean that this moil here was attempting to do a mitzvah. It has to be here. The High Gavra answers the Gemara, Mi Eloi is Yehiv. Him, this moil was not allowed to do anything here, which is a Gavaldik Gemara, my friends. Because according to certainly the last two versions, it's amazing. Rabbi Yeshua holds, gives so much chashivus to your intent. To your intent. Imagine, especially the last version. The last version is that according to Rabbi Yeshua, even if what you did is b'chlal not a mitzvah, you circumcised a baby that's 7 days old. You did an act of chabal. It's nothing. Since there was in front of you another baby that taka should have been circumcised today, so your involvement here is to do something that you are allowed to do. This is mamish, they say that good intentions, you had good intentions, you had allowed intentions, you are exempt from a chatos, which is gavaldik cool. Okay, moving on, Chad. Says the Mishnah. Cotton, nimoil, right? Similar to the Mishnah Megillah, leshmoina, or letisha, or la asara, lachatchila, or la chadasar, or leyud beis. Leipachos v'loyoiser, mamash, like Megillah. Haketzad, kidarkoi, leshmoina, normal. Noilad ben hashmashes, guys, an example, the baby is born, let's say Sunday night in the ben hashmashes period. If ben hashmashes would have been still considered part of the day, so when is the 8th day? Next week, Sunday. But since maybe not, and on the 7th day, there is Bechlal no mitzvah, so when do you circumcise the baby? On Monday. That's the Mishnah's meaning of 9, on the 9th day. Even though it's not really the 9th, it's maybe the 9th. That's what the Mishnah means. He was born Sunday, ben hashmashes into Monday, but you have to wait until Monday. Nimalotes. If, says the Mishnah, ben hashmashes shall add of Shabbos, Friday night going into Shabbos. So like this, if ben hashmashes is part of Friday, then you have to do the circumcision on Friday. But maybe it's not. And again, Mila on the 7th day is b'chlal not a mitzvah. So do it on Shabbos. No, you can't do it on Shabbos because maybe ben hashmashes is Friday, which means Shabbos is the 9th day. Mila shaloi b'zmana is not doiche Shabbos. So you got to do it on Sunday. We're calling that the 10th. It's maybe the 10th. Okay. Next case. What happens if Yom Tov la'achar Shabbos? What happens if on Sunday is Yom Tov? Then you got to do it. Nimoil la'achar dasar. Again, he was born at bein hashmashes, Friday into Shabbos. Then you do it on Monday, which is maybe the 11th. And if Beis Yomim Shal Rosh Hashanah, then Nimel Shnei Masar, then you do it, right? Even though, guys, today, Loi Adu Roish, but not in the times of the Mishnah, when they were being Mekadosh the Chodesh Al Pi Ariyah. So Rosh Hashanah could be on Sunday. Sunday, Monday, you do it on Tuesday. Comes along the Rambam.
What about 2 days of Yom Tov in Chitzur? It's not Rosh Hashanah.
Comes along the Rambam and he says, aha, the fact that the Mishnah only mentions Rosh Hashanah is a raya. That Rosh Hashanah, we know this in Halacha, and we're going to learn this when we learn Masechtas Rosh Hashanah. It's called Yoima Arichta. There, Mila is not Doicha Yom Tov, even Mila Shaloi B'Zmana. But when it comes to Yom Tov Sheni Shel Goliath, here, since it's Bechlal Safek whether it's Yom Tov, second day, Mila Shaloi B'Zmana will be Doicha, says the Rambam, says the Rosh, Nachar Rambam and Rosh. No, the reason why the Mishnah doesn't mention any other Yom Tov is because the Mishnayos were written in Eretz Yisrael. In Eretz Yisrael, the only Yom Tov that had 2 days was Rosh Hashanah. But now that we b'chutz la'aretz, we also have 2 days because it took more than 2 weeks for the Edom to come to us. So the same thing the Mishnah writes on Rosh Hashanah, Machlekes Rambam and Rosh, where the Mila Shaloi B'Zmana is Doicha Yom Tov Sheni Shel Goliath. It's very good, Shlomo.
Rabbi,
let's move.
Why wouldn't we say mitoich if the whole issue is chayvel, right? Shechita is mutter on Yom Tov.
We'll get to that.
So,
we'll get to that. Very good. Okay. Very good. Now, Koton hachoyle, Koton hachoyle. If you have a child that's sick, and we already spoke Bekitzin, quoted Rabbi Nachman, there's a choyle kol gufay, and there's a non-choyle kol gufay. So, you got to wait for him to get better, just to know the words. If it's called a choyle that's not called gufay, then the moment the baby gets better, you do the bris. But if the illness was called, his whole body was ill, Amar Shmuel, says Shmuel, and this is on the choyle kol gufay, that chalot satu chama, which means that when the fever leaves the baby, he's getting better, not right away circumcised. Even when he starts getting better, when he's better, so you give him another 7 days. And only after 7 days passes, which means on the 8th day, do you do the bris. On that they asked, does it have to be 7 full 24-hour periods, right? Or not? And guys, just a halk up over here. When a baby is born, the Torah Taka says Bayoim Hashmini. Bayoim Hashmini does not mean, by a normal bris, that you have to wait 24/7. 24/7 means you don't wait 24/7. It has to be on the 8th halachic day. So if a baby is born today, all the way at the end of the day, today Thursday, at the end of the day, Next week, Thursday morning, you did not yet have a full 24/7 pass. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. So the question is, what do you say regarding this concept of a baby that's ill, kol gufay? So Tashema, the Tani Luda taught us a braisa, Yoim havarasai ki yoim hi volde. That was the braisa. And l'cha'ira, this comparison that yoim havarasai is like the day that a baby is born. My love, ma yoim hi volde loy ba'inin me'es la'es. Because we say mixas hayoim kakula, like we say in so many other parts in halacha. Af yoim havarasai loy ba'inin me'es la'es. L'cha'ira, that's exactly what this braisa is addressing. Says the Gemara, you can't resolve the boya from the braisa. Maybe Adif yoim havarasai mi yoim hi volde. Adif means more chamur. Maybe no one debates that. Maybe, but in so what's 1 second? So what is the Braisa saying? It's just telling you that the day that the baby recovered is viewed that the baby was born today. That's all he's saying. Don't say the baby got better, do the bris. No, when the baby gets better, halachically the baby was born today. But as far as, and the bris is done on the 8th day, maybe the 8th day means a full 24/7. The Gemara doesn't even speak out why you have to be more machmir. Maybe, and the reason is, again, chamira sakanta meisura. That's a big difference. Since the baby was ill, and we're speaking about an illness that if you would have done the bris during the illness, maybe the baby would have died. If there's already a pikuach nefesh involved, so maybe you have to wait a little bit longer. The Gemara does not resolve this boya. Because of the rule of Chamira Sakanta Me'isura, that's the rule. So in Shulchan Aruch, we always will pasken l'chumra. And indeed, when you have this concept that Rabbi Kleiman told me that he does this. In other words, when we spoke about that, he goes by Rav Zalman Shimon, that when the Billy Reuben goes 15, sometimes 16, 15, 16, chayla kol gufay. Chayla kol gufay has to go down to 10. When it goes down to 10, he waits 7 full days me'es la'es. And he is medagdik. That means that if the baby, you have to figure out from when you make the test, from when you get the results, you don't count from the results, you count from when you made the test. The results is just, the results that you're getting is a siman of what happened when, but if someone made a test, let's say midday, so then he would do it the next week, on the same weekday, after midday. That is the ideal time, because you have the whole week me'es la'es, but not in the morning. Okay, says the Holy Mishnah. There are shreds of the arla that if you did not trim it off, b'di'evet, the meal is not good, and that is basar hachoife esroif atar. Now, when you learn the Mishnah, atar is the corona. So if you have arla that's covering the roiv of the atar, it would sound like that it has to be covering the majority of the circumference, right, of the corona. No, we're going to see in the Gemara that even if there is a piece of arla that's covering a very narrow part of the circumference, but if it's going over the corona on the height of roiv, that's also called tzitzan ha'ma'akvin. The Gemara will say that clearly. How important is it to trim this tzitzan ha'ma'akvin? You know how important that b'di'evet, if you didn't do it, you have to do it. You're considered an adol. And therefore, Herst Omri, a kohen who's an adol, may not eat truma. Truma. That's the way the Mishnah says, the snapshot hama-akvin, do it again. Until you do it again, you don't have a bris. If you're a kohen who's an adol, you cannot eat truma. This is something that Rabbi Kreiman says he sees a lot. So sometimes the child is very fleshy. Now, when you cut the arla, there's no arla left to cut. You cut the arla. But because of the fleshiness of the baby, it appears like he's uncircumcised. So here, it's good that mesaknoi, that you should trim it more, even though none of the arla that's covering that cut is there. Trim even more the skin that's on the shaft. More details in the Gemara. And the final case in the Mishnah is Molvolei Para. If you cut the foreskin, right, but you did not split the membrane that's under the foreskin and pull it back, fully revealing the corona, that's the whole point of the milah, then And even though historically when Hashem gave the mitzvah to Avram Avinu, by him the mitzvah was only doing the act of cutting the arla. But again, like we learned, nitnu toirav and neschat halacha. Really, the neschat halacha was even when we were in Mitzrayim, beginning over there. So that's even before nitnu toirav. That now you have to do the act of the cutting the arla. You have to do the priya. If you didn't do it ki'ilu loimal, now the Mishnah doesn't say that if you didn't do mitzitza ki'ilu loimal, true, because again, even though the Gemara says that mitzitza is to take away sakana, but again, we learn pshat in that it's considered part of the milah. Just to know that. When Hashem says do something b'pnei sakana, it's considered part of the ma'aseh hamilah. But if you didn't do it, so you violated God's will. But the corona is revealed. If you didn't do periya, it's ki'ilu loimal. Says the Gemara. Amar Ravina, Amar Rabbi Yirmiyah, Barabo, Amar Rav. Don't say that if it sits in roiv of the circumference, even if it doesn't cover the roiv of the circumference, it can be very narrow. But if it goes up and we're measuring from the bottom until the tip, if roiv of the height is covered with one little protrusion of an arla, even b'diavad, you're kayan, you can't eat truma. Anyway, about basar v'chulei. Now, guys, there are two versions, halkap and the diuk. Amar Shmuel, katan amasur basar. If the child is naturally, he's coated, he's very fleshy. Royin oisoi. Now, look at the words of the Shmuel. Kolzman shemiskashe v'niramol. If when he has an erection, the baby, if when he's erect, he looks fully circumcised, so then in is sarach lamo. But I add the word fully to appreciate this. It means even when he has a kishoy, it doesn't still look fully, then it's not good. It's good when it's fully. Ve'im lav tzarich lamo. That's Shmuel. The masnisa tana in a braisa, the era of the Tanaim, they were more lenient. And guys, it works that way. Amarayim cannot go against a Mishnah or a Tana lakula, but he can go lachumra. Before the era of Shmuel, they were a bit more lenient, which was Rashba Goimer. If during a kishu he doesn't look at all circumcised, that's the worst. Even though he is, and you have to know, you have to see the mitzias. I mean, the artwa was cut, but if during a kishu he b'chlal doesn't look circumcised, only then does the Mishnah say mipnei marasayin tzarich lemulei. The im lav means, but if when the baby has a kishu he looks a little bit circumcised, then it was already good. Then it's already good. And my benayu between Shmuel and the Braisa, like we just explained, benayu nira ve'ena nira. Nira ve'ena nira means during a kishui, if it looks partially, in the era of the Tanoim, they said it's good. Shmuel went ahead later and he said no, that the only time you don't have to trim it at all is shemiskashe, and he looks completely mo. It was machmer. Only then are we good. If not, there's a maras ayin issue, and this is an issue that Rav Nachman says happens many times. Okay, says the Gemara weiter. Mol v'loy para. Mol v'loy para tan rabbanan. Hamal oimer asher kidishano b'mitzvayse v'tzivano al hamila. And just to make it clear, guys, we're going to learn this soon, not that far. I know Eruvin is a geshmak, but after that, we're going to come to Psachim. And in the beginning of Psachim, we're going to learn the question whether you say al hamila or lamul. Right? Al kviyah, likvoya mezuzah, or al kviyos mezuzah. And we're going to learn there that if you're a shliach, you do al. If you're the main person, you do leh. So here is the al hamila when there's another mayil, and maybe according to many that if the father is doing it, he says lamul. Lamul. But let's go. There's a mayil and there's Aviyah ben. The Aviyah ben says and here the whole big Tosfos, right? The second Tosfos speaks about the issue of doing a bracha, saying a bracha over la'asiyasam, right? So I'm just going to, the Tosfos understands our Gemara that the father's bracha will not be over la'asiyasam, doesn't bother us. And Alter Rebbe writes in the Siddur, based on this Gemara, based on many Rishonim, not the way Tosfos learns, based on the Mishnah, Gavaldik, that we have on top of it, Mol v'li para, ki'ilu loy mol. So what does the moil do? The moil makes a bracha before he cuts the arla. I don't know, you know that Nachman, whoever had a bris with him, he'll tell the father, the moment you hear me make the bracha, he always says it. Right after my bracha, you make the bracha. Because ideally, we want for the Aviyah Ben to make the bracha before the Priya. Then you have the Oiver L'Asiyasan. How great is that? Now, the Moil won't wait. He won't wait. So if the father is kratzing, so he lost that Oiver L'Asiyasan and he has whom to rely on. You have Shitas Toisvis, that the father's bracha doesn't have to be here, Oiver L'Asiyasan. But you look inside the Siddur, the Alter Rebbe says that Bein Mila Lepriya is where the Aviyah Ben should make the bracha. Ha'oimdim, the Bach adds the word Sham. People there say, Kishem shenichnas lebris, ken yekanes letoira, ulechupa, ulemasam toivim. To share one of the many vertelach that we have, the kasha is, but you don't say lechupa letoira ulemasam toivim. Why not? Why not? Because toira you have to learn before you get married. You single people out there. So the kasha is, so why doesn't it say, why don't we say letoira, lamasam toivim, ulechupa? Don't we do masam toivim before chuppah? And the answer is, and this is human psychology. Many people are great in doing masam toivim to the ganze Welt, but in their homes they have a lot of growth. You know where your masam toivim is masam toivim? At home, patient with your wife, masam toivim with your kids. That's the masam toivim. Gavaldik. This is so emes. Torah doesn't change. Masam, watch that. You'll see that reality by many people. Greatest people out there in the home, they're not great yet. Now we have in the Gemara the Mavarech. In other words, we after the bris, you give a name, and we before the Kriyas Hashem, there's a bracha. So what's the nusach? Asher kidesh yidid mi beten. Now, very interestingly, it's pashut. There's no time just to be aware. Big machloikas Rashi Tosfos. Who's the yidid? Rashi writes the yidid mi beten goes on Yitzchak. Tosfos writes, "You did me beten," goes on Avraham Avinu. With so many nafkaminas, but let's move on. And choik b'she'eroisam, that Hashem places the mark of a choik. The bris is a choik. It's a chukah. This chukah is a mark in the flesh. And betzatzah of the yedid also chasam ba'ois bris kodesh. And al kein b'scharzois, kale, chai, chelkeinu. The Bach adds what we say, our rock, tzurenu. That God commanded us. That what? Who did God command? Let's go with Rabbeinu Tam. That the Yidid goes on Avraham Avinu. God commanded Avraham Avinu that whoever has a bris under flesh has to be saved from hell. And as the Marsha quickly reads over here, I'm reading in the Chidush HaGadois, Tziva HaKadosh Baruch Hu le'Avraham, Lahatzal Yididu Sherenu, Tahainu Gufenu, a Yiddish body, Mishachas, Tuhu Gehenim, as it says, he brings from Periscope Pasim that Avram Yoshev al Pischa Shel Gehenim, Umasik Misham, he removes from over there, Lami, She'ein Boy Dvar Erev Aveda. What does it mean? He doesn't have a Dvar Erev Aveda? It means a Yid that, God forbid, that never had a relation with a Goyim. You have a relation with a non-Jewish woman, he calls you someone who's Moshe Charlasai, or also a Moshe Charlasai. If a person didn't fall there, you're not going to hell. Don't sin. It's not good to know this. People say, I'm good. I didn't fail there. First of all, be careful. But we shouldn't sin anyways. But Avraham Avinu was commanded to save us from Gehenna. Weiter, back inside the Gemara. Asher Sam Bivsareinu, Baruch Ato Hashem, Koirei Sabris, Koires Voloshan Hoiva, that you established the covenant. Now, Hamolas Agedim, Oimer Baruch Ato Hashem Elokeinu Melech Haolam, Shekesh Anu Yisvanu Al Hamila. So the Nusach HaBracha on the act of Mila is the same. But now who's the Aviyah Ben? The Aviyah Ben is the Beis Din. Beis Din there, the HaMevarech, his bracha will be different. It won't be Lahachnisoi Bevrisa Shel Avraham Avinu. What will be the bracha? He says, Ashkesh says with Sivanu, Lamul es Hagedim, Ulahatev Mehem Dambris. And here we add, She'il Mali Dambris, Noiniskaimu Shemaim Varetz. If not for the Dambris, the whole world would not have existence. As it says, a pasuk in Yirmiyah, Imloi Berisi Yoimim V'Layla, if not for the covenant of day and night, what's the covenant 24/7? Only the bris. If not for that, Chukah Shemaim Varetz Lei Samti. And how beautiful is that? because you would think, right, he's not doing it when he's 8 days old. It's not the covenant that God made with Avraham Avinu regarding Yitzchak. So we emphasize that this bris is a bris. The whole heavens and the earth stand because of the bris of a ger. It's like a bris of an 8-day baby boy that's born from a Jewish mother. And Baruch Atah Hashem, koyres abris. And the third category will be a evet. So when you purchase an evet Kanani, ideally he's supposed to undergo a conversion process, not l'shem Jew, but l'shem Avdus, both Mila and Tvila. And by the way, if this Evet Kanani would go under the water and his intention would be, in order for me to become a Jew, he's automatically free. It has to be l'shem Avdus. We learn Rambam. The Rambam says, therefore, the master pushes him under the water. So then you're demonstrating that he's an Evet. Another important thing, when it comes to Avdus, we're not speaking about anyone being kidnapped and sold. That's a capital sin in Yiddishkeit. We're speaking about someone who sold themselves into Avdus. And when we speak about the right to choose doesn't go on murdering a baby. No, the right to choose is a person has the right to sell themselves into slavery. That's the right to choose. But the Yid who buys them has to make him or her undergo a gerus process l'shem avdus. And here also, hamalos avodim oimed asher kedushanim v'seis v'svan ala mila, v'amavar chaimer asher kedushanim v'seis v'tzivanu lamoleso avodim ulahatif mehem dabris. And even here, where the person is not even a bona fide Jew yet, we say here she'il mole dabris chukai shemayim v'adas leiniskaimu shenemar. Again, the pasuk in Yirmiyah. Just before we say Hadran Allah Rabbi Eliezer de Milam, to point out that here you don't find any mention of a Shachiyana. And that's the origin of the big machlokes. Today it goes all the way down, generally, at least Chutz La'aretz, between Sfardim and Ashkenazim. We, the Chutz La'aretz, certainly do not make a Shachiyanu. Our source is by the fact that the Gemara makes no mention of the bracha shechiyanu. The reason would be that the Rishonim use the words Sara diyanuka, because the baby is in pain. Others hold that the Gemara doesn't have to mention shechiyanu because that's already a standardized bracha. You don't have to go through the shechiyanu here. The unique is about the bris. So we give the bracha of the moyo, we give the bracha of the aviyaben, we give the bracha that's made afterwards. But again, the Sfardim hold, and many Ashkenazim and Eretz Yisrael hold, that even though the Tzara Diyanuka, a Shechiyanu, is made during the bris, and in Hadran Allah, we'll come back to you to Perek Rabbi Eliezer de Mila, and now we're beginning with the 20th chapter. We're getting towards the end, even though it begins with the words Rabbi Eliezer, but it's Rabbi Eliezer Toilen, so we're calling it Perek Toilen. Toilen means to suspend, and we spoke out the kitzur. You have wine then had dregs in them. So one of the practical ways of getting rid of the dregs is that when you had a keli, you had some sort of strainer that you would hang or suspend over your cup. Hanging it means that you would fully spread it out around the entire circumference of your cup. So when you pour wine out of the chavis, out of the keg into your cup, it's going through the strainer and the dregs are getting stuck. So what are the issues here? Boired, and as we'll see, many hold that that's called not biblical boired. It's shaloi kedarkoi. Why is it called shaloi kedarkoi? Just giving you one approach is because normally boired is done before you eat, when you want to store something. Here, you're doing it in your cup during the eating. So we're going to call this shaloi kedarkoi. A lot more of that, God willing, in the next shiurim. But we're going to focus now on the oil issue. An oil means you're making a covering. You're making a covering means anything that's one tefach by one tefach is called an oil. So here, in preparation of eating, you're making an oil. So says Rabbi Eliezer, on Yom Tov, lechatchila, you can be toilen es hamishameres b'Yom. You could suspend, hang the strainer, and we don't say that you're violating oil. Why? Because it's Yom Tov. Right, Danny just mentioned in the previous year regarding Metoich Shehutra. We're going to get to that in a moment over here. Okay. And number two, on Shabbos, you don't have a heter to hang the strainer because, on Shabbos, you may not make this oil, even though you're doing it for eating. But if the strainer was already put on your keli from before Shabbos, The noisnim liteloya, you can pour the wine through it. Why can you pour the wine through it? Says Rashi, the ein darkei bekach. Are you doing boider? Ein darkei, we're going to learn, because since you are pouring the wine immediately when you're going to be drinking it, I'm saying the word cup, it's already out of the category of an Isser diet. I saw a lot more in the Gemara. Okay. The Chachamim take everything up one level of Chumrah. Right? Rabbi Eliezer here is lenient as he is in the last Pedic. By Machshirei Mila. The Chachamim hold like this. Ein toilen es hamishameres b'yomtiv. To hang it, not even on yomtiv. Oichel nefesh. Wait, we'll get to there in a moment. However, at least on yomtiv, if you already suspended the strainer, you made the oil out of yomtiv, then you can pour the wine on yomtiv. But on Shabbos, again, one step even more chamur. Not only may you not suspend the strainer, but even if it was suspended erev, the ein noisnin letloya b'Shabbos. Abel yes, noisnin letloya b'yontiv, because this is actual food preparation. And as the sugya will unravel, right, there's a difference between actual food preparation and doing something that's needed prior to consuming the food, right? So there's pouring it through the strainer and then there's building the oil. Says the Gemara. Before we go into the details over here, if you remember on DAF Kuf Chafei, when the Mishnah spoke about a pekaka chaloin, we have some sort of window, which also includes a skylight. I don't know if I said it when we learned DAF Kuf Chafei, so it's an opportunity to clarify that. Can you put a board in the skylight? Now the issue, I know I mentioned boina, and it's boina, Rashi says boina, but if it's a skylight, it's also oil. So if you remember, Rabbi Eliezer was the machmir. So Rabbi Eliezer, even if it's only to be oisufe oil arai, if it's only to add into a temporary oil, and what are we referring to? Mahi the Tanan, we learned above here in the Mishnah. A window shutter, Rabbi Eliezer says the only time you will be allowed to put it in, to take it out, is if you have two criteriums. Number one, it's already attached prior to Shabbos. And not only is it attached with the string, but the string is short, so that when the shutter is not in the windowsill, when it's hanging, it's talui, it's suspended. No part of the shutter is even touching the ground. Everyone sees it's already part of the building. Only then can you put it in. The Chachamim say, benkach or benkach poikikin boy. And we learned the Mishnah, benkach or benkach means, according that it doesn't even have to be, it does not only does when it's hanging, can it be touching the ground, it doesn't even have to be attached. And on that, what's the machlokes? Hakol moedim, she'ein oisim oil arabat chila b'yamtiv. Even on yamtiv, you may not make an oil arai, and no need to say that you may not make even an oil arai on Shabbos. Why not look on the Mishnah Ella lo hoisef? Right, like here it's good. You have a skylight. Some of the roof is up. Rabbi Eliezer holds ein meisifin b'yamtiv, and there's no need to say on Shabbos, which is the reason why Rabbi Eliezer says you can only use it if it's both kosher and talui. The Chachamim say meisifin b'Shabbos ve'ein tzarich lama b'yamtiv. Kasha answers the Gemara. No. Rabbi Eliezer holds like Rabbi Yehuda. Here we go. Don't hack me. A building, a shutter, and food changes. The Tanya ein bein yom tov l'Shabbos elo oichel nefesh vulvat. Oichel nefesh means, my friends, direct food. Direct food would mean, cooking on Yom Tov. Rabbi Yehuda says, no, not only cooking. Machshirei oichel nefesh. Machshirei oichel nefesh will mean, let's say you had a spit that bent out of shape, and you're fixing it. You can fix it on Yom Tov, right? Especially if it bent out of shape after Yom Tov began. If your spit bent out of shape before Yom Tov, and you could have fixed it before Yom Tov, as we'll see in a moment, that's already different. So therefore, the answer here is, since here we're speaking about machshirei oichel nefesh, putting up a strainer, according to Rabbi Eliezer, on Yom Tov there's no issue. That's only she'i efshel asoisim out of Yom Tov. But the machshirim she'efshel asoisim out of Yom Tov, which is you could have put your strainer on your keli before Yom Tov. It won't make a difference in the quality of the boiler done on Yom Tov. Bishamat lei, answers the Gemara. No. Rabbi Eliezer is based on Rabbi Yehuda, but he goes more than Rabbi Yehuda. The Rabbi Eliezer, Abdifim and Rabbi Yehuda, he holds that even by Machshirei Archel Nefesh, it trumps Yom Tov, and God's willing, got a lot more to be continued. All right.
Rabbi, just quickly, in halacha today, if a baby's born bein hashmashos, how do we paskin once the bris?
If a baby is born Friday night bein hashmashos, the question is what's bein hashmashos? That's the question. But if it's called bein hashmashos, the bris will be done on Sunday, which is called on the 10th. Call this the 10th because maybe Friday should have been the bris. Friday is the 8th, Shabbos is the 9th, Sunday is the 10th.
So we follow the way the Gemara says. I mean, we delay it.
Yeah, there's no
like the Gemara says.
Correct. Just to know one thing. This is good to remember from many other halachas in the Torah. That the Alter Rebbe says in the Siddur that Shkia, whenever you look at your Zmanim and you see Shkia, you can add 3 or 4 minutes. Just to know that. And that's halacha l'maisa. Like for this, like if Shkia on your Zmanim is, I don't know, now it's 7:49, the baby is born 7:50. And we learned in Nida a lot about what's that baby born, right? The forehead. Right, the roiv of the head means when the forehead comes out. When you look at a birth certificate and they write the time, they're not writing the correct time because someone calls it, and they don't call it when halachically the baby is born. They call it a little bit afterwards. So when it's very borderline, you have to ask a rav, and you have to find out the procedure of the hospital, and ideally speak to the person that was there to determine exactly when it was halachically born, and to see whether it's before Shkia or after Shkia.
Rabbi, for ochel, for borer, so if someone is eating on his plate on Shabbat, it's not considered borer kedarko?
Oh, so let's leave that more for tomorrow. I mean, there's huge sugyas. In other words, Rashi says that whenever you're doing during eating, it's not called boirer. According to this, it would mean that you're definitely not chayv chatos.
Nice.
And not only that, he's saying by one you can do a lachatchila, but a lama, we're middle, we're just beginning. All right, guys, Thursday.